What are your current income streams and the percentage of each, however you want to break that down?
Sure. So originals make up about 85 to 90% of my monthly income. And out of that, commissions are about 65 or 75% of those originals. And then I do other small releases on my website, and those make up about 10 to 20%, depending on the month. Then I also sell prints. Right now, my method is a monthly release over about a 3 to 4 day period. And then those are printed and shipped for me by my printer. And that makes up about 10 to 20% of my monthly income. And then I have the awesome frame TV art, which is one of my favorite streams of income. It's a small percentage, but it's amazing passive income. And it's also just really cool. Like, I truly love art TV. I love getting to see art on other people's TV. And that makes up about 2%.
Do you make art specifically for that because it's a certain size, or do you crop other artwork?
That's a great question. I intentionally do some originals that are horizontal and I believe would format well for that. But I sell them as originals first and then decide which ones I would like to use as frame TV. And I'll often have collectors reach out and say, is there any chance this one might become a frame TV option? And then I will see if it would work. Of course, I would never use someone's commission to become a frame TV, but if it's a work that I've created and released, then it's fair game to become a frame TV art. And I will say I am extra intentional about having things that are potentially seasonal, because at Christmas, that was a really popular way to earn some passive income, was to have something with a winter or Christmas theme to it, which I was happy to paint, sold the original, and then really happy that other people got to use it. I also have a coffee table book. And so that one, I released it in 2022. I did not plan to create, I only plan to have it published once. So not run multiple times. I'm happy to share even more about that process with you. But in 2022, when it released, it was 7% of my overall profit, but 12% of my sales.
Okay.
And now, monthly, it's more like 1 to 2%, depending on the month. Each month, my primary focus is going to be on painting my commission projects. Then secondary to that is going to be a small release of originals. So originals, not only is it the majority of my income, it's the majority of what I do for a couple of reasons. One, I want to paint every day, every weekday. That's what I love to do. That's where I want to put my efforts and my time. And it brings me joy. It also helps me. I have a lot of people asking me to create pieces, so I'm able to meet that need. Commissions have been, right now, I'm booked up a little over a year out. I try not to go much further than a year out, just because it's hard to predict the future. But I release commissions on my website, commission spots, and my clients are able to go in and secure a spot with a $200 deposit. And on that, I have everything outlined as far as the pricing guide for the year that they are going to have their commission created. So, for example, for 2024, it has my pricing guide. I let them know that's the month that their painting will be finished. And then the way it works is that I say we because I have an assistant. She reaches out to all my clients about 6 weeks before it's time for me to create their piece. We get everything we need to know from them as far as any inspiration photos, any conversations we need to have back and forth about the piece, and the size. And so I plan out in my calendar when I'm going to be creating those. And then I look at, okay, well, how much time do I have available, and what sort of collection am I interested in releasing?
So hang on just a second. So let's say we're recording this in July of 2023. And so let's say you have commissions due for August of 2023. Do you start painting those in July then? Or you start painting them in August?
I start painting them in August.
Okay. And then how many spots do you take per month?
I typically advertise about 7 spots per month. However, right now we are expecting a baby in September, so I had to move some of my maternity leave clients to the summer. And so I'm doing up to 13 a month.
Wow.
Right.
Wow. Okay. So you're doing those commission, and at the same time, you do the small paintings release.
Yes. And I also should add that I also leave that 7 most months, even if it's not a month where I'm preparing for maternity leave. I also will add in 1 to 3 spots for designers who reach out to me asking me to create a piece for their client so that they don't have to book out that far in advance. They are the ones I'll make an exception for and slide them into my schedule where I have room.
Because they're repeat clients.
Exactly.
They'll come back.
And they're wonderful to work with. And then the smaller releases, I typically will do I like to do under 10 painting. I have found that if I release more than 10, even if they're small pieces, that it takes longer for a collection to sell out. And I like for them to sell out within a day if possible. I mean, I'm
Because
grateful for any, right?
then you don't have
Anything.
to promote it anymore.
And what it does is it helps communicate that if this is a piece that you love, one should go ahead and buy it because it will not be there in the future. And I found that one, I know I don't regret any original art that I've bought. It communicates, hey, get it now. Otherwise, it may be gone, or it likely will be. And that, I don't want to say teaches because I have such a smart, amazing collector base, but it does teach
Train.
the collectors. It trains, that if you see something you love, to go ahead and get it. And that has become something that I have found. People reach out, what time will this be released? And I now let my email list know. One, they're the ones that get to know when the commissions will be released via my website. They'll go live. And they also know when any of my releases will go live. They know first. And that has helped me build my email list because they do get inside information. I don't tell Instagram first. I tell my email list first.
How far in advance do you tell your list?
It depends. Sure. It typically a week before. Sometimes I'll give them a heads up that I might say, this is what's coming this month. And if a release is happening later in the month, then they might have a 2 or 3 week advantage.
Yeah.
Release or promote something on a Saturday morning, and I might send out the email the Friday before to say, hey, this is happening in the morning. When you click on this link in the morning, they will be live. And then sometimes we'll send a follow-up email that's very brief. It literally says like they're live now with an image to remind them that they can click. But I have found that Saturday mornings with a cup of coffee seem like a good time for people to buy art. And that's what's worked for me. So that's when I like to put it out.
Isn't that interesting? Because I would never encourage my clients to do a sale on a Saturday morning because I'm one of those people that don't look at my email on Saturdays. However, I love it that you do it a way that works for you. And it clearly works. Like probably if you hadn't made sales on Saturdays, you would change the day. But
Exactly. So I found that works. And it just works for me. It works with what works for my schedule. And since the two are colliding, it's mutual. We're going to keep going with it.
That's so important. Let's get to the print release also. You do that once a month also.
Yeah. So I used to have prints available on my website ongoing. There were just options available, and I would limit the number that were printed. And then when they sold out, they sold out. And when I moved from South Carolina to Montana last summer, I had, at that point, I worked with a fabulous printer in South Carolina. I still do, but I was the one shipping them. And so we could meet, or he would deliver them to me, and we'd pick them up and I would ship them out. And we could do that, once a week, no problem. Then I thought, what am I going to do now? Live across the country. And we worked out where he was able to drop ship them for me. He does the shipping with my branding now for me, which is wonderful. But to make it where he has one big print and one big shipping session, I now release about the past couple months, I've released 6 to 8 prints just at once. And I give my followers about a weekend to select what they would like and place their order. And then he ships those out the following week. And then we do it with new options the next month. And I do think, again, kind of like with the original, because these are going to be gone the next month, they're not going to be available. If you see one you like, this is the time to go ahead and get it. Has actually increased my print sales.
Yeah.
So I have found that limiting the time was a smarter business decision. And I thought it was just something we had to do. And now I'm glad I did.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you decide which prints to make available?
Based upon what people are highly interested in. My most popular print release was I did in May obviously before Father's Day, and it was Augusta National based landscapes. And so I am intentional about the timing of that. I knew I wanted to get them into people's hands well in advance of Father's Day. That could make an excellent gift. Summertime, my last one had, lemons. It also had some marsh landscapes that just remind me of summer. And also someone said, when are you going to ever release that marsh print? If I've gotten a lot of inquiries, that tells me they're pointing fingers at it saying this should be a print. I like to have 3 sizes of small prints that are easy for someone to pop into a standard frame. So if I do 5x7 printed on 8x10 paper, 8x10 printed on 11x14 watercolor paper, and then 11x14 with a 1-inch border. And then the canvas options that I have, I currently ship as unstretched canvas. And those, it depends on just the dimensions of the piece. But those can go up all the way to, a really large reproduction, like 36 by 45 or 48.
When did you get into this rhythm? Was it 2020 or was it 2019?
I'd say not 2019. 2019, I was still teaching, still just doing, I only released 1 or 2 small collections. 2020, I started releasing a lot of things via Instagram. So I would say with my commission, I have 5 commission spots available for the next 2 months. Please send me a DM if you're interested. And that's when I began to book it. And I would always showcase, and I think this is so important, showcase commissions that I loved painting and I was excited to paint more of, something similar. If I ever accepted a commission that I think I want to do a commission like that again in the future, I was happy to create it that one time, but that is not what I showcased. I always shared the ones that I loved painting. And that's what I recommend to anyone. Paint what you love and people love for you to paint. That's the sweet spot. And so I began to get more and more inquiries from people. And I also reached out to designers that I loved their work. I followed them already on Instagram just because I liked it. And I just let them know that I was available, that I had this many spots. And if I could ever be of service, I would love to help their clients out. And I formed some amazing relationships that way that I continue to create work for their clients.
Are they ones that are local or in South Carolina?
So I would say more on the East Coast, but also Texas. So I'm excited to build some relationships with people local to me here I live in Kalispell, Montana. I just haven't had time because I'm so spat with all my more East Coast and Southern friends. But I have collectors, from coast to coast. And I'm so thankful for that. I think the only place I haven't shipped to is Alaska. So that's like such an honor. But I did Virginia, Georgia, Florida, Texas, and certainly South Carolina have been places where I've connected with designers. But they service also outside of their region. So definitely more on the East Coast. But I've been really happy to ship all over.
So it appears on your website that the small works are $290 to what's the high end of the small works?
The high end of the originals that I might release maybe would be, it's not a small piece, but it would be closer to 3,600 or
Okay.
so in a small collection.
Okay. Small collection, not small piece. Small collection, not small piece. And so do you care to share what your average sales are on a
Yeah,
release or it
I don't mind.
prints or originals?
Sure, the average would be, depending on if I only, of course, release some 8x10s, then it's gonna be closer to about 2,000, but I would say 2 to 8,000 would be an average for a small collection release.
Great. And what about the print?
The prints I've had, just if I think about the past couple of months, I had that one really big one where it was close to 11,000, but a typical month would be more like 3,500.
So you can make almost as much money releasing prints as you can releasing the small collections.
That is that is true except for the profit margin. Shipping, what I pay for the prints, because you're shipping to so many people versus 5 to 10 people, the profit margin is much higher on the
Okay. So the net is lower for the print releases.
correct. However, it is passive now, be almost all the way passive. So I like to say there's no such thing as bad passive income because he is doing the shipping for me. It is highly profitable time.
Yeah. But it's not passive because you have to upload the prints, you have to do the color correction, you have to do the marketing of them. And so
Correct.
not like it.
You're
I just want to be very clear for the artists listening that there's some work involved.
you are correct. Absolutely.
So how has your income increased since you started doing this?
Oh, yeah.
Significant I didn't ask you to do that number in advance.
Yeah, no, I do know. So I know that when I went full time in 2020, my goal was I needed to replace my salary as a teacher.
Okay.
And I didn't even mention this. I had kind of a bridge job where I taught English online at 4 a.m. in the morning so that I could make sure it wasn't a big deal. My husband and I, we needed my income. It wasn't something where we just had this extra money. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it was a big step. But what I did is in planning what we would earn that month, I included that part-time income. So at that time, I did replace my income as a teacher. I think the first year was closer to around $50,000 or so. The next year, it more than doubled. And last year, it was more than 200, which
Wow.
that's in profit, not sales. So
That's in
that,
profit.
yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And
Yay.
it's blown me away. And it's such an amazing thing to be able to. There was a time my husband was able to leave his job to focus on his doctorate program. We're able to save for the maternity leave that I'm about to take, and I'm able to save and pay for things like college. And if you had told me that was possible, I would have thought it's possible for someone else. That's not reality. I think I would have doubted you. But it's been slow yet fast. It's always fast. Steady growth and learning what works, slowly increasing pricing, matching demand. So not doing big price increases that the demand wasn't there for, but slowly increasing.
I want to emphasize for everyone that Kelly is saying all of this with a smile on her face. I think she loves what she does, and you may be working really hard, but you're working the way you want to work.
It's true. And I actually now, so I always feel like it's crazy when I say this. I work about 25 to 30 hours a week. I'm very intentional with my time though. Like I break down my time I have a bullet journal. I write down, it'll say in my bullet journal, it'll say 9 to 9:05 setup, 9:05 to 9:15 sketch. Like I am, not because I'm trying to rush through it, but because I don't want to waste my time. And I love painting. I've been what somebody might call a fast painter, even though it's my natural tendency, even in high school, like having a painterly style, being a more of a quick paced artist is my natural tendency. So I lean into that because that's naturally how I work. And so when I'm able to use my time doing what I love, yeah, it makes me smile. It makes
Yeah.
me incredibly, incredibly grateful. And I don't take it for granted that I get to do what I love.